Okay, so what if, just imagine, everything you thought you knew about, well, geography, the actual shape of the world, wasn't really based on what you've seen yourself?
Uh-huh.
This deep dive is going to take us somewhere pretty mysterious, Antarctica, that huge place covered in ice.
Right.
And then it kind of shoots us out into space, really challenging some basic ideas we hold.
Yeah, some fundamental assumptions.
So today, we're diving into some really interesting sources. We've got clips from an audio discussion called The Antarctica Secret, Why We Cannot Go the South Pole.
Okay.
And our goal, really, is to explore these pretty unusual claims, these observations that maybe suggest there's more going on than we generally think, or maybe what we've been told.
Yeah, things that aren't exactly mainstream discussion.
Exactly. We're here to unpack the connections, some surprising details, maybe ask some thought-provoking questions.
To help you, the listener, get a better handle on this kind of information and think critically about it.
Right, especially the stuff that hangs out on the fringes. Okay, so let's get into it.
Well, the source kicks things off with a kind of a core idea. How would you actually hide an entire world, or maybe just its boundaries, if someone found them?
Okay, I wish I...
The suggestion is it really only became possible with advanced technology. Specifically, they mentioned the internal combustion engine around 1900.
Ah, so planes, basically. Before that, it was impossible.
Pretty much. Think about it. Wooden ships, horses. You couldn't really explore or, more importantly, control massive remote places like Antarctica effectively.
Okay, I see the logic there in the source's argument. So it wasn't until the early 20th century that we even had the tools to properly look for these supposed boundaries.
Exactly, and that's where Admiral Byrd comes into the story.
Right, the source describes him as the world's greatest modern explorer, and also United States' youngest admiral of all time. Quite the figure.
Definitely. And his missions, especially from like 1928 up to 1956, the claim is he was flying around Antarctica.
Doing what exactly? Just exploring.
Well, the source says he was specifically looking for the boundaries of this world, the fence line, the gun line. That's the
Fence line. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And Operation Deep Freeze, his last mission in 55, 56.
Yeah, that's presented as a really key moment, a turning point. Because the source claims that right after that mission finished, the relevant powers of the world acted very, very strangely.
Strangely how?
Well, it leads to the question the source poses. If you did find some kind of edge or border to the world, and you decided it needed to be kept secret, what would you actually do?
How would you hide it? Okay, so this is where the theory starts to build.
Right. It suggests two main strategies, one for hiding what they call the upper edge, and one for the outer edge.
The upper edge, like space.
Exactly. The idea proposed is just to militarize space, make it a no-go zone. It's way above where commercial planes or even spy planes fly.
So inaccessible.
Right. And to back this up, the source makes a pretty bold claim about NASA. That NASA isn't civilian, it's actually military. Part of the DoD, the Department of Defense.
Really?
Yeah. And they say it was founded on the still-burning embers of the Nazi war machine.
Okay, that's quite a statement. The Wernher von Braun connection?
Exactly. They mention him as its father figure, brought over with Operation Paperclip, after World War II.
Right, the program to get German scientists.
And then the source points to something called Operation Fishbowl. This apparently happened right after Byrd got back from Deep Freeze.
What was Operation Fishbowl?
Well, according to this source, it was the U.S. and the Soviet Union firing nuclear weapons straight up into the sky for 4 years.
Nuclear weapons. Straight up. Why?
The theory presented isn't that it was weapons testing for war. It was supposedly to map out the sky.
Map the sky with nukes.
Yeah, or maybe to try and bust through the barrier, what they called the dome.
The dome.
That's the term used. And when they couldn't break through, the idea is they then use the explosions, kiloton weapons to figure out its exact dimensions and curvature.
Wow. Okay, that's a very different take on Cold War nuclear tests. So that's the upper edge. What about the outer edge?
That brings us to 1959, a very important year, according to the source, because two big things were announced almost at the same time.
Okay, what were they?
First, the Van Allen radiation belts, announced by, James Van Allen, who worked for NASA.
I've heard of those. Deadly radiation zones, right?
Exactly. Described in the source as super, super deadly for humans, stretching way out, like 500 miles up to maybe 60,000 miles deep.
So pretty nafty.
Yeah. And the interpretation in this theory is that this announcement basically functioned as a warning. Don't go up there. A natural deterrent, conveniently discovered.
Ah, okay. And the second thing, In 1959.
The Antarctic Treaty was signed.
The Antarctic Treaty, right. How does that fit in?
Well, the source presents this treaty as completely unique, unprecedented, really.
How so?
It basically says no corporation anywhere in the world can do anything in Antarctica ever. Full stop.
Anything. Like no mining, no oil drilling.
Nothing. And it's super strict. Even if some new superpower emerges tomorrow, they have to sign on to this treaty.
Has anything like that ever held up before?
The source claims it's the only treaty ever in the history of treaties that has gone this long without anybody even challenging it.
Really? How long has it been?
Since 1959. Over 150 countries are signatories now, and it's apparently locked in, not up for renegotiation until 2041.
2041. It's a long time for an international agreement to go unchallenged, especially concerning a whole continent.
Right. And here's where the source points out a major contradiction.
Okay.
Remember Admiral Byrd. In 1954, just a couple of years before Deep Freeze, he was on national TV on a show called Longines Chronoscope.
Yeah. What did he say?
He was talking about Antarctica having vast resources. He mentioned a mountain range made out of coal that can supply the entire world.
Seriously. A mountain of coal.
That's the quote. Plus oil, minerals, uranium, you name it.
So Byrd was saying it's incredibly resource-rich just a few years before this treaty bans all corporate activity.
Exactly. And the source finds it really odd that no major oil companies, no mining giants, are even talking about going there.
You'd expect them to be lobbying like crazy, right? Running media campaigns.
That's the point. It goes against all typical corporate behavior when valuable resources are known to exist. So why the silence?
What's the explanation given?
The source claims the enforcement is treated as a matter of national security, handled at the very top corporate levels with federal injunctions ready if anyone steps out of line.
So a total lockdown justified by national security. And this relates to ownership.
Yeah, the source makes a big point about this. Try asking who owns Antarctica, who's in charge.
Well, I guess it's managed by the treaty nations. For science.
But nobody owns it. The source asks, do you know a single piece of real estate anywhere ever that isn't owned by somebody?
Good question. Not really, no. Land is usually owned.
But Antarctica, according to this view, is unique. Nobody owns anything. No single entity is officially in charge. It's not even a UN thing. The claim is all the trading nations just sort of spontaneously agreed to this treaty.
Okay, so why? Why the total ban, the secrecy, the lack of ownership, according to this theory?
The rationale suggested is, well, risk management. They didn't want even one rogue plane or rogue helicopter going off course down there.
Seeing something they shouldn't.
Exactly, seeing the wrong thing, and then what do? You can't just silence or eliminate potentially hundreds or thousands of people if the secret gets out.
So the treaty is a cover.
A cover of multiple treaties, yeah. Using science as the public justification to keep everyone out of the vast interior.
Okay, so can anyone go to Antarctica at all?
Well, the source mentions tourist trips. You can go to the peninsula, the edge, for maybe $10,000 or $15,000.
But not inland, not to the interior.
That's reportedly forbidden. You need extensive permits, multi-country approval, tons of red tape. Basically impossible for an average person or independent group.
And the place itself is tough, right?
Incredibly hostile, yeah. The source describes a 200-foot sheer wall of ice just at the coastline.
Wow.
Then the interior is at like 14,000 feet altitude. Altitude sickness can start around 7,000 feet.
So it's a dangerous just being there.
Very. Plus, there are no landmarks, apparently, just ice and snow. And your compass doesn't work properly.
Why not?
The theory presented is that the North Pole is the only magnetic pole. There's no magnetic South Pole in this model, so compasses just spin or point north.
Huh. Okay. And who transports the scientists who are allowed there?
The military, according to the source, they take the research teams in, and most of the bases are kept relatively close to the coast, within striking distance, as they put it.
Okay, so with all these restrictions, natural barriers, military control,
Yeah.
how could anyone even test these ideas, like the flat Earth aspect?
Well, the source proposes a specific test, the Antarctica proof.
Okay, how would that work?
Yeah. You'd need one ship and one plane. Imagine the world like a clock face, right? Put the ship down at the bottom, the 6 o'clock position, near Antarctica.
Got it.
Then the plane takes off and flies either clockwise or counterclockwise, following the Antarctic coastline, staying close enough to see it.
Why stay close?
Because the source claimed GPS is unreliable down there. It shows you where it wants you to think you are, not necessarily your true position. So visual navigation is key.
Okay, so the plane flies along the coast. What's the expected result?
It depends on the model of the Earth. If the Earth is flat, with Antarctica as a big ice ring around the edge.
The plane should run into the ship fairly quickly, right? It's just circling the outer edge.
Exactly. But if the globe model is right, and Antarctica is a continent roughly the size of Australia at the bottom,
Then it would take much, much longer to fly all the way around it.
the source estimates about 18 hours for a plane to circumnavigate it on the globe model.
So has anyone done this test?
Well, that's the catch. According to the source, two problems. First, they claim no plane has enough fuel to fly that potential 18-hour route nonstop along the coast.
Okay.
And second, and more importantly, they say the Antarctic Defense Force, whoever that is, prevents any aircraft from flying south of the 60th parallel without authorization.
So the test, which sounds simple enough, is actually impossible to perform because of fuel limits and military restrictions.
That's the claim. This innocent enough test is blocked.
So if this flat Earth idea holds, how should we picture the world?
The source offers a visual aid. You're basically looking at the UN flag.
The UN flag. How does it relate?
It refers to the map projection often associated with the flat Earth model, the azimuthal equidistant map.
Okay, what's that?
It's where you put the North Pole right in the center, and then all the continents are spread out sort of radially from there.
Antarctica.
In that projection, Antarctica isn't a continent at the bottom. It forms a giant ring around the outside, like an ice wall containing the oceans and continents.
Like the edge of the world is ice.
Kind of. But here's a weird thing the source points out about the actual UN flag logo.
Yeah.
Antarctica isn't on it. It's literally not there.
What's there instead?
Those two olive branches, the Greco-Roman wreaths, encircling the map.
Huh. I never noticed Antarctica wasn't on the UN flag map.
Yeah, so the source asks, do those wreaths represent Antarctica? Or maybe some kind of barrier, almost like out of sight, out of mind?
Interesting observation. Does the source bring up other anomalies or ways to test this map idea?
Yes, a few. For instance, flying along a line of latitude, say the Tropic of Capricorn in the southern hemisphere.
Okay, east-west flights.
Right. On a globe, the distance around the Tropic of Capricorn is much shorter than the equator. But on that UN flag-style map, the southern latitudes are way stretched out.
So the flight time should be drastically different depending on which map is right.
Radically different distances and times, yeah. The source suggests this is technically allowed. You can fly these routes, but a conclusive test settling the matter isn't widely publicized or accepted.
What about other common proofs of the globe? Like the Coriolis effect? Water down the drain.
The toilet drain thing? The source addresses that. While the scientific Coriolis effect influences large weather systems?
It's often used as this simple proof, right? Drains spin one way up north, the other way down south.
Yeah, it's a popular idea. But the source mentions a YouTuber, Smarter Every Day, who did a specific experiment.
What did they do?
Set up identical kids' pools, very carefully controlled, one in the northern hemisphere, one in the southern, timed the draining.
Yeah.
The result was, quote, unbelievably slight. It took almost forever for any spiral to form, and it was so minor, the conclusion was it was not enough to be conclusive or really affect anything else.
So that bathtub drain example might be more myth than reality.
Or at least not the simple, obvious proof it's often made out to be, according to this experiment.
Okay. What about people whose jobs involve precision over long distances? Military, surveyors.
Good question. The source claims that military personnel, snipers, tank gunners, artillery folks, even missile commanders, they don't factor in the Earth's spin for their calculation.
Never. Really? You'd think a missile going a long way would need that.
That's the claim. The spinning of the Earth is never, ever used in our 9-to-5 jobs. Scopes apparently only have adjustments for wind effects and elevation, not curvature or spin.
And surveyors, people who map land.
The source says the vast majority, like 95, 96%, are planar surveyors, meaning they treat every project like the world is perfectly flat.
Why would they do that?
Because, as the source puts it, square properties don't fit on a ball. If you accounted for curvature over typical property sizes, the lines wouldn't meet up correctly, you'd have gaps or overlaps, so they work on a flat plane assumption.
Okay, that's counterintuitive if the Earth is a sphere.
It is, and it leads to another big question the source raises. Water.
Water. How so?
Well, the Earth is supposedly spinning really fast, right? About 1,000 miles per hour at the equator.
Yeah, that's a standard figure.
So the question is, how does all the ocean water uniformly hold on to the globe at that speed?
Gravity, right, that's the standard explanation.
Yes, gravity is the answer given. But the source challenges this, saying, shouldn't centrifugal force the outward fling be significant? Like water flying off a spinning wet tennis ball or a merry-go-round?
Hmm, I see the analogy.
Yet the oceans appear completely uniform. There are no massive bulges of water fling out at the equator or bald spots near the poles where the spin is slower.
So the source thinks gravity alone canceling out that much centrifugal force is a stretch.
A stretch, that's the word used. They find it hard to accept that gravity perfectly negates that force to keep water so level.
Okay, what about looking outwards? Planets, we see their spheres, right?
But how do we know? The source asks, who told you they were spheres? How do you know exactly?
Well, telescopes, pictures from space probes, NASA images.
Right. From Earth, we mostly see circular points of light. The detailed 3D images and flybys largely come from NASA.
And the source is questioning the source of that information.
Or at least questioning our perception. It points out it's very hard to tell if what you're seeing is 2 or 3-dimensional from far away. Like a UFO, is it big and distant or small and close? It can look the same.
Sure.
Planetariums simulate spherical planets, right? The
Yeah.
source poses the question, is our reality just a bigger planetarium?
A provocative thought. What about the classic proof using sticks and shadows? Eratosthenes.
Yeah, measuring shadows in different locations to calculate curvature. The source argues that proof relies on a key assumption, the sun's size and distance.
That the sun is huge, hundreds of thousands of miles wide, and very far away, 93 million miles.
Right. The source claims the same shadow differences would occur if the sun were actually really close and not very big.
So the experiment works on either model, depending on your assumption about the sun.
That's the argument. And it ties into the idea that humans are notoriously bad at perspective and judging relative motion.
Like when you're in traffic and the car next to you moves, and for a second you think you're moving.
Exactly that feeling. Or on trains side by side. It's hard to tell who's actually moving without a fixed reference point.
Okay, one more astronomical point, parallax. Star movement.
Right, parallax. The idea that closer stars should appear to shift position against background stars as the Earth orbits the sun.
We learn about that in astronomy.
But the source points to time-lapse photos of the night sky. All the stars, whether they're supposedly 4 light years away or millions of light years away, seem to rotate together in the exact same fashion.
In perfect circles around the pole star.
Perfectly patterned circles, yeah. They don't seem to shift relative to each other in these photos, and constellations have looked the same for thousands of years.
So the question is,
When exactly would we see the parallax? If stars are at such vastly different distances, why don't we see more relative shift over time?
what's the standard science answer to that?
That the distances are just so immense, the shift is too small to notice easily over human timescales without very precise instruments.
But the source finds this lack of obvious, visible shift suspicious.
It raises questions for them, yes. So putting all these anomalies together, the community exploring these ideas according to the source.
What's their conclusion?
At the very least, you are not on a globe anymore. They believe this realization was made by the powers that be back in the 1950s.
And they've been hiding it ever since.
Trying to, yes. Until the internet came along and the detection ability got better, making it harder to keep the lid on.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to something maybe more practical. Flights. Specifically, Southern Hemisphere flights.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. The observation here is about GPS data, or the lack of it.
What about it?
The claim is that flights going over the big southern oceans, the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, they show virtually no GPS data once they're more than, say, 200 miles offshore.
No GPS, like on the flight tracking websites.
Exactly. Latitude and longitude might just show up as question marks, or it'll say approximated.
But wait, GPS stands for Global Positioning System.
Those?
It uses satellites, right? It should work everywhere.
That's the contradiction the source highlights. It's supposed to be global satellite coverage. There should be no dead spots, especially not over huge oceans.
So why would there be dead spots? What's the alternative theory?
The claim is that GPS isn't really satellite-based, or not entirely. It's suggested it's actually based on an older system called LORAN.
Loran, what's that?
It was a ground-based radio navigation system, basically ground radar towers, and those have range limits, roughly 200 miles, unless you have repeater stations.
Okay, so how does that explain the difference between hemispheres?
Well, the northern hemisphere has way more landmass, more places to put towers, even on islands to get coverage.
Ah, but the southern hemisphere has these vast stretches of open ocean.
Huge chunks of ocean that have nothing in them, as the source puts it. No place for ground towers, therefore, creating these supposed GPS dead zones.
Okay, if that's true, and if the flat Earth map is correct, what does that mean for flight paths down south?
It means the actual routes planes fly would absolutely not make sense on a globe model. They'd look bizarrely long or indirect if you plotted them on a sphere.
So, how can we check this?
The source gives you a kind of homework assignment. Try booking flights between southern hemisphere cities, like, say, Johannesburg, South Africa to Perth, Australia, or Santiago, Chile to Sydney.
Look for nonstop flights.
Yeah! See how many true nonstop options there are. The source suggests you'll find very few, and the connections often involve flying way up north first, doubling the distance compared to a direct route on a globe.
Why would they fly north?
Because on the flat UN flag-style map, those northern routes might actually be shorter or connect through areas with better navigation or infrastructure, assuming the ground-based GPS theory holds.
Interesting. Is there anything else about these flights?
Yeah, the source mentions a little trick airlines apparently use with the term non-stop. A flight can still be called non-stop, even if it lands somewhere for fuel, as long as passengers don't get on or off.
Seriously, I thought nonstop meant no stops at all.
Apparently not always. And the theory suggests these southern routes might use remote fuel islands that passengers weren't expecting.
Leading to confused social media posts.
Yeah, people posting like, hey, why did we just land on this tiny island I'd never heard of on my non-stop flight?
And this relates to the map scale.
Right. The source also claims these southern flights often take way longer than it should based on globe distances,
Suggesting the map is wrong.
suggesting some scale issues with the UN flag map or just generally the distances in the southern hemisphere. There's something wrong with the map.
So if a plane could fly a direct southern route, say Chile to Australia, in the time predicted by the globe model,
That would be a significant challenge to the flat Earth model presented here, yes. It would suggest the globe distances are more accurate.
okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. From Antarctica to space to maps and flight paths. What's the main takeaway for someone listening to all this?
Well, the point of this deep dive isn't necessarily to convince you to believe or not believe any specific claim.
Right, it's not about conversion.
No, it's more about encouraging you to use your own brilliant creativity, as the source puts it, to ask yourself, how do you prove that this whole idea is right or wrong?
So active questioning, not passive acceptance.
Exactly. Trying to become aware of which beliefs you hold are based on things you've just sort of accepted versus things you've actually looked into or could potentially verify.
Moving from assumption to knowledge.
That's the goal. Transforming belief based on assumption into, hopefully, belief based on actual knowledge, or at least conscious awareness of the assumptions.
And we'd echo the source here. Don't believe a single thing I've said, or rather, a single thing the source claims. Just check it out for yourself.
Absolutely. The community discussing these ideas is huge now. You can find tons of material online, YouTube, forums, wherever. Just look around if you're curious.
It's not about forcing a change in worldview overnight.
Not at all. It's about exploration, questioning, maybe stretching your mind a little.
Right.
The source compares it to watching The Twilight Zone. It just gets you thinking, questioning reality.
And hey, if the Earth is the globe shape, it's going to be a globe shape even if you explore these other things. Investigating alternatives doesn't change physical reality.
Right. It's an exercise for your mind.
So, maybe the final thought we leave you with is this. How do you really know you're on a globe?
Is it just because you've been told that over and over since you were a kid?
Or is it because you saw a picture from space once, maybe from NASA, and you just accepted it?
It's a challenge, really, to examine the foundations of what you think you know about the world you live on.
And to figure out for yourself what you truly know and how you know it.